The young and the restless spoilers youthful restlessness. Will Billy and Sally's relationship withstand the storms? From the moment Sally Spectra first stepped into Billy Abbott's life, there was an unmistakable spark of electricity, an intense combination of curiosity, shared ambition, and the promise of something new. Yet, as thrilling as their connection has been, it has never felt like a love destined to endure without challenge. After all, Billy Abbott's romantic past reads like a winding odyssey through triumphs and tragedies, missteps and miracles, each relationship leaving its own indelible mark. Does that history doom him and Sally to yet another spectacular flameout? Or could this time be different? Let us examine the evidence, delve into the patterns, acknowledge the progress, and even entertain the tantalizing prospect of other romantic avenues for Sally should she decide to move on. Billy and Sally began as colleagues at Newman Media, their shared drive and mutual respect laying the foundation for a genuine friendship. Billy, ever chivalrous, offered Sally guidance through tight deadlines and corporate politics. Sally, ever vivacious, brought joy and fresh perspective to Billy's all-too-familiar world of boardroom battles. Over time, the spark grew into something more, and Billy, who had been through heartbreak and betrayal more times than he cared to recount, allowed himself to fall once again. There was a tenderness to their early dates, impromptu dinners at Crimson Lights, late-night strategy sessions that ended in laughter rather than fatigue, the kind of moments that could make even the most guarded heart believe in happily ever after. And indeed, for a while, it looked like this relationship could defy the odds. Yet to understand whether Billy and Sally can survive the inevitable trials ahead, one must first acknowledge Billy's track record. In the whirlwind of his adult life, he has walked down more than a handful of romantic aisles, some hoping for altar vows, others barely lasting past a week. There was Victoria Newman, whose shared history of family loyalty and corporate expectation collided with Billy's desire for freedom. Chelsea Lawson, whose secret-keeping and impulsive betrayals left him questioning his own judgment. Lily Winters, whose quiet strength he admired but whose ambitions sometimes clashed with his own. Sharon Newman, whose enduring heart seemed to promise stability until outside forces tore them apart. Then came Heather Stevens, whose intellect and independence fascinated Billy until her need for control triggered his insecurities. Phyllis Summers, whose boardroom vendettas with Victor Newman mirrored his own internal conflicts. Mackenzie Browning, whose youthful optimism reminded him of simpler days even as the specter of past mistakes haunted their every reunion. And those are just the most prominent names. Each relationship carried its own hopes and heartbreaks, revealing facets of Billy's character that both inspired and frustrated, drew admiration and disdain. Time and again the pattern has been clear. Billy's initial empathy and enthusiasm would blossom into deep affection, but whenever the heat of emotion collided with the pressures of business or the ghosts of his own impulsive tendencies, Billy often lost his footing. His failings were not always entirely his fault. Certain betrayals by partners, corporate sabotage, or simple miscommunication played their roles. But more often than not, it was Billy's own inability to temper his worst impulses that triggered the downfall. When Chelsea betrayed him by deceiving Adam Newman, Billy reacted with righteous anger. And while his fury was understandable, his retaliatory schemes often went too far, fracturing the very bonds he sought to protect. With Phyllis, his inability to compartmentalize his personal loyalties from boardroom loyalties turned every strategic meeting into an emotional battleground. Even when he managed to avoid outright disaster, his restlessness pushed him toward new distractions and new relationships before the old wounds had any chance to heal. It seems more often than not that Billy's worst enemy in love has been Billy himself. But there are signs that this chapter with Sally might not follow the same script. For the first time in years, Billy has demonstrated a remarkable capacity for growth. He has learned to listen, to truly listen, when Sally expresses her fears, her frustrations, her dreams. He has paused before plunging headlong into revenge plots, opting instead for honest conversations, however uncomfortable. He has acknowledged his past mistakes to Sally, not as excuses but as lessons learned the hard way. In doing so, he has shown a depth of vulnerability that was almost entirely absent in earlier relationships. Where once he would have reacted with blind anger or flight, now he often chooses collaboration and compromise. He has become, in Sally's eyes, not just a protector, but a partner, someone who stands beside her rather than charges ahead alone. Even so, Billy remains at his core, a man prone to waves of youthful restlessness. The same drive that propelled him to seek out new horizons in business can, without caution, manifest in emotional impatience. He still carries scars of family expectations, of betrayals by those he trusted, of his own sometimes reckless pride, and those wounds can flare up under stress. A single misstep, a heated argument at Newman Media, an unplanned business trip that forces Sally to question his priorities, a moment of jealousy when Billy misreads Sally's loyalty, could trigger a familiar spiral of self-doubt and defensiveness. If history is any guide, these moments could compound swiftly, sabotaging all the trust they have painstakingly built. Which brings us to the pivotal question: if, despite every effort, Billy and Sally find themselves at an impasse, what other romantic paths could await Sally Spectra? Soap operas, after all, revel in the twists of fate, and Genoa City abounds with eligible prospects whose qualities might be precisely what Sally needs to complement her fiery spirit. Consider Devin Hamilton. His gentle resilience and philanthropic drive could offer Sally both emotional depth and a shared sense of purpose far removed from the cutthroat world of media conglomerates. Or what of Kevin Fisher, whose razor-sharp wit and unpredictability mirror Sally's own adventurous streak, promising a relationship built on mutual banter and the thrill of the unexpected. There is also Noah Newman, whose introspective calm might serve as a soothing counterpoint to Sally's passionate intensity, helping her cultivate patience and reflection. Even Theo Vanderway, with his artistic sensibility and outsider perspective, could open new creative doors for Sally while challenging her to grow beyond the familiar circles of Genoa City power players. Of course, it is far too early to dismiss Billy Abbott from the equation. After all, few have fought as fiercely for love once they decide to stay. Should Billy and Sally weather the storms ahead? Should Billy continue his journey of self-improvement and Sally maintain the faith she has in him? They could emerge stronger than ever, forging a partnership that defies past patterns and redefines what lasting love means in a world rife with ambition and betrayal. Their story may yet become a testament to the power of learning from history rather than being doomed by it. In the end, the question, will Billy and Sally fail, may depend less on the fickle winds of soap opera drama and more on two people's willingness to transform themselves. As viewers, we can only watch, hope, and cheer them on through every boardroom showdown, every tender reconciliation, every moment when Billy's impulsive heart threatens to derail what they have built. And if the worst comes to pass, if the relationship falters under the weight of old habits, then we will turn our attention to the promise of new beginnings, marveling at the way Sally Spectra's heart, restless yet resilient, dares to love again. So let us raise our virtual glasses and reserve judgment until the credits roll on this chapter. And then, perhaps, dream of the next romantic adventure that awaits. It's entirely within the realm of possibility that Sally Spectra and Nick Newman could find their way back to each other. But whether that rekindling would truly stick depends on a tangle of unresolved emotions, timing, and external pressures that have defined their history. Nick has indeed been orbiting single life for some time now, and his latest stunt, stringing Victoria along with the "I eloped with Sharon in Europe" ruse, underscores both how vulnerable he is to acting out of loneliness and how willing he still is to play games when his heart feels wounded. That same vulnerability, however, can also drive him toward honesty and the deeper commitment he once shared with Sally if he can admit what he really wants rather than hiding behind schemes. Their past chemistry was undeniable. In the early days, Nick and Sally's rapport combined his level-headed steadiness with her fearless optimism. He admired her creative spark and tenacity, and she valued the loyalty he showed when the Spectras and Newmans clashed. Yet every time they came close to solid ground, another fault line opened. Whether it was Nick's old entanglements with Adam, Sally's lingering feelings for him, or the weight of family loyalties that bulldozed through their budding trust, reuniting would require them both to confront those old betrayals head-on. Nick must apologize not only for his more recent deception of Victoria and by extension everyone who thought he meant it when he spoke of running off with Sharon, but also for any half-heartedness he ever showed Sally when her commitments to Adam and ultimately bearing his child pulled her in a different direction. Only by owning those mistakes can he prove he's ready to offer Sally the stability she's earned. Sally's side of the ledger carries its own complications. She has never truly moved on from Adam Newman's shadow, both in terms of the child she's carrying and the emotional residue left from their tumultuous affair. For Sally to open her heart again to Nick, she would have to relinquish any hope that Adam might pivot at the 11th hour, choosing instead to invest fully in a partnership that doesn't hinge on him. That's a major emotional leap, given that her identity over the past year has been so intertwined with Adam's baby storyline. Sally would need to redefine herself outside of that narrative, seeing Nick not as Plan B, but as someone whose love and shared ambition can outshine any specter of her past. If those two pieces fall into place, if Nick shows genuine contrition and Sally can release her emotional ties to Adam, their reunion could be a fresh chapter rather than a rerun. CBS writers could lean into their strengths. The way Nick supports Sally's career-launching ideas at Newman Media, or how Sally challenges Nick to be more spontaneous and fun after years of boardroom battles. They might craft scenes that harken back to their best moments, a collaborative late-night brainstorming session at Crimson Lights turned into a romantic confession, or a heartfelt conversation over Sally's first major fashion showcase where Nick publicly declares his pride. These beats would allow both actors to showcase a renewed intimacy that feels earned and different from the wishful reunions of the past. But Genoa City thrives on conflict, so external obstacles will undoubtedly arise. Will Victoria, stung by Nick's lies, ever forgive him enough to cheer on a Sally-Nick reunion? Could Adam, sensing that Nick is encroaching on both his legacy and his child's future, insert himself back into Sally's life at a critical juncture? And what of Spectra Fashion's own ambitions? Might Sally's loyalty to her family business pull her back into a partnership with Thomas Forrester or another dynamic suitor, offering a professional alliance that complicates her romantic choices? Any one of those story threads could test the resilience of a Nick plus Sally pairing, forcing them to choose between old loyalties and the promise of a shared future. In the soap opera world, true love often survives its worst trials. And a Nick and Sally second chance storyline would resonate precisely because both characters have grown through their mistakes. If they can prove that the lessons of the past have reshaped them into partners of equals, willing to communicate openly, to prioritize each other's needs, and to face adversity as a united front, then yes, Sally and Nick could reunite and perhaps stay together longer than any of their previous romances. Ultimately, whether that happens will come down to their willingness to forgive, to change, and to place each other above the ghosts of Genoa City past. Only time and a few dramatic cliffhangers will tell if this once bright spark can ignite into a lasting flame.